Well, a historic start to the Prime Minister's visit in the United Kingdom, a joint statement which talked about new trade collaborations worth £9 billion, and then that address in the Parliament where the Prime Minister took an extremely strong stance on terror. Let's talk about the issues that have come forth so far. Let's say good evening to Dr. Shambit Patra of the BJP. Also joining us, KC Singh, former Secretary of the Ministry of External Affairs, and Hartosh Singh Bal, political editor of The Caravan. Maruf Raza, of course, continues to be with us. Mr. KC Singh, if I can just come to you on what you think are the major points that have come forth so far in a very short span of time. If you compare it to perhaps Modi's visit to the United States, where also the focus was on trade largely, where do you think this visit is different, and what for you has stood out so far this evening?
Look, what is important is you must separate when all these announcements are made of what is intent, what is something which has already happened in the past, and what is new. Now we talked of terrorism. It's very good UK is on the same page. The only new element is cyber terrorism. They'll work with us. That's very good. But overall, there is no dissonance between us and Great Britain. We are both victims of terror. Though their perception of terror emanating from Lashkar-e-Taiba may be different from ours, because they may be looking at Al-Qaeda or ISIS related groups. So that thing would be there. So that's why Prime Minister was conveying to them, and particularly their parliament, that we should have really a seamless approach to terror. That's all well and good. Now, as far as Security Council support is concerned, this is old hat. They've supported India's candidature from the time that I was Additional Secretary, 2006, 2007. So they've done it for almost 10 years. Britain and France were the earliest to support a permanent seat for India in the Security Council, though that's old hat. I don't consider that as any fresh achievement.
Okay.
Now, civil nuclear agreement, I'm not able to understand what that really means, because President Xi was there 21 days ago, and he has agreed to set up a nuclear plant for England. He's going to be spending $28 billion to set up a 3.3 gigawatt producing plant. So if Britain requires the Chinese to set up a plant there, I don't know what we are looking for, because I don't think Britain is seen as a great custodian of great nuclear technology knowledge. But yes, it helps us in the sense when you are becoming members of the nuclear suppliers group. One more country that has an agreement with us strengthens the case for India to join the nuclear suppliers group. Now, it's interesting how many times Gandhiji has been recounted. I wish that Gandhiji was more fondly remembered in India, particularly when social disharmony comes up. And Prime Minister needs to really come and take action against the people who lowered from the extreme right wing of his party, who lowered the discourse, the level of discourse leading up to the Bihar election. And that is why all these issues are being raised. And see how the Speaker of the Parliament very cleverly brought in the issue, first praising India, that there were always question marks whether a country of India's size and diversity and level of development could have democracy. And he said India is a great success. And then he immediately added, however, you need freedom of speech and you need freedom of faith. So he brought those two in. So PM did address it by saying India is for harmony, Gandhiji, etc., etc. But some of that is wearing thin. I think PM has to act. He has to be seen as taking action. You cannot just go abroad and make these statesman-like statements.
Yes.
They are being read very carefully. They'll be noted. And then the world will measure whether Modi, the statesman, is also a statesman at home or not. Or it's two different Modis that you're dealing with.
Very nicely put there. And your opening comments actually sets up for a discussion, a very engaging one with Hartosh Bal, Shambit Patra and Maruf Raza in it. Hartosh Bal, your opening thoughts. 10 years since an Indian Prime Minister has visited the UK, 15 months into government, the first question that he's asked, the answer that he gives, and then the standing ovation in the British Parliament. Your thoughts?
Look, first of all, we have an obsession with England. England is not necessarily one of the most important countries in the world at the moment. Let's keep that in perspective. I think Casey was very, very right. Plenty of things, old hat, Narendra Modi coming off a major electoral disaster. This is the way the BJP has always reacted to disaster. Put a spin, take old stories, talk about promised investments, many of which never materialize. The essential factor that even when Modi, having escaped questions of intolerance in India, lands up in UK, those questions are dogging him right there. He finally has to answer. an answer he should have given in India to Indians, he is giving in the UK to the English. It speaks badly for a Prime Minister that he's forced into this corner. The rest of it is the theatrics of the visit. This is what happens in every visit.
So is it just that? Is it just that? Dr. Shambit Patra, is it just theatrics? What we've heard so far from our panelists is a lot of old hat. What's really new? And also the answer on intolerance, should it have been something that was given as emphatically, unequivocally here in India?
Take it as a rhetoric though, but I would say there are a few old hats at the panel also, and I expected the same kind of answer that I got right now. When the Prime Minister is making statement on the floor of the Parliament in UK, I expected some kind words from the old hats, but I'm sorry, I've been disappointed. We get standing ovation for the Prime Minister in a foreign land, but as soon as the debate begins back in India, we have dragged ourselves to the same kind of old hat phenomenon that India is an intolerant country. Well, yes, we are a democratic country. We have our domestic compulsions. We have our domestic politics. We can fight it out on our own ground. But when on a foreign soil, the maligning of the India's character takes place, when a question is put that whether India is tolerant or not tolerant, I believe the question does not go to the Prime Minister as such. It does not attack a personality. It attacks the basic character of a nation, and that's the reason as to why the Prime Minister rightly invokes Mahatma Gandhi and Gautam Buddha, saying that this land is inherently tolerant. So the question itself is flawed. Please don't expect ever in your life an intolerant India, because in our psyche, we can never become intolerant. What they could understand, what they can assimilate, I'm astonished that back here in India, some people are unable to assimilate.
All right, so Shambit Patra, let's then get to the positive, since you want to certainly steer the discussion in that direction, and we'd be happy to do that. So let's talk about something that Mr. K.C. Singh said, that there's a lot of old hat, what's really new, and also Hartosh said that there's a lot of announcement made to the tune of billions of dollars earlier, now billions of pounds. How much of this does actually fructify in the end? This £9 billion pact of collaboration that we're talking about, how soon and when are we going to see this really manifest itself?
Tina, in fact, it's astonishing. Even the MOUs probably would not have been signed. I mean, it's the first few hours of the Prime Minister on the foreign land, and we are saying why the money is not in our pocket. It's quite kindergartenly when
I think Shambit, the allusion was in fact to these pacts and deals that have been made on foreign lands before. So the question is that how much of that has already started getting manifested? It's not about this, of course. The question is not about what's just been promised an hour back.
No, Tina, I absolutely agree with you. But look, I mean, the question is how much has come before also. Definitely, a substantial amount has come before. That's the reason as to why India has become the #1 destination for the greenfield FDIs. Today, India has surpassed US as well as China in drawing greenfield FDIs. 40% increment in FDIs. How did all these happen? All these happened only because of the fact that the previous tours of Mr. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, to foreign destination has worked. Had it not worked, the greenfield FDIs would not have increased.
Sambit Patra,
it has worked. That's the reason as to
why then is there a difference between perception and reality? Maruf Raza. Yes, there is a stated position on terror. Yes, there is a message that's gone. There is a message that's gone to Pakistan. There is a message that's gone saying, state your position. Let the United Nations define terrorism, define a terrorist, and define a terrorist state, or that which is a haven for terrorism. That's what the Prime Minister is trying to steer the discussion to. But you also agree that if there is a lot of good that's been talked about in terms of digital India, make in India, skill in India, all these initiatives, why is it that there is a difference between perception and reality?
I want to answer that. If you have
Let me ask Maruf and I'll come to you, Sambit.
Anand, after all the comments of our distinguished panelists here, I just want to sort of bring out a few new aspects to what has already been talked about. The first is, in my understanding, whatever Mr. Modi's shortcomings domestically and whatever criticism he's come in for, my understanding is that he's trying to leave behind his legacy on the international forums And that legacy is about trying to get a global consensus on terrorism. It's a point that he has consistently labored on in every visit abroad, and he has been getting a certain amount of sympathetic support for his position, whether in the United States, the UAE or the UK. So there is that one element. The second element, which I think which is relatively consistent, it may be old hat, but it is veering towards a new foreign policy dimension, is that India has now moved beyond its bilateral annual visits between heads of governments that was only taking place in the earlier era between India and Moscow, is now gone on in Modi ji's time to Japan, and the UK is also on board. Now, I do concede that the UK is not the top honcho in global politics anymore. But having said that, it's not a pushover either.
Yes.
So let's look at the positives. You know, it is India's third largest investment destination. It is the country that is also the third largest investor in India.
Yes.
It is, as Modi said, the door to the EU for India. It is also a country which still is a member of the UN Security Council, whether we like it or not, and we are more favorably disposed to France because of the consistent French stand in favor of India ever since we did our nuclear tests, and Britain has continued to sort of hang on to the coattails of the Americans, and we therefore look at it with a certain degree of skepticism. But if it's a member of the UN Security Council, it has a say in global forums, it's good to have it on our side.
Okay.
Having said that, Mr. Sambit Patra has been defending the Prime Minister. That's his job. He's spokesman of the party. But let me also say that I think what the BBC correspondent brought out in terms of the first question, which is a very pointed question that was asked, I think it reflects the mood in the international community about a certain concern about India, which it is good that it was brought out. It's good that the Prime Minister addressed it, but he needs to probably follow up on what he has said, coming back home and reassuring a certain degree of critics that are there to say that, listen, I mean business. Because it has, as some economists have said, the world is not going to invest in India if India is not seen as a stable destination.
Yes, Sambit Patra.
Speaking very candidly, I would say, though I do not wish to say this, but no one should derive any sadistic pleasure from the question that was thrown to the Indian Prime Minister abroad, which I see consistently some political opponents are trying to derive.
We are not talking about political opposition.
I'm speaking about political opponents. Please allow me to make a point. I don't know whether there is a Congress spokesperson or not.
No, there is no Congress spokesperson.
Who are trying to derive
the intent is not to make it a political debate today. The intent is to make it a very real discussion, Sambit Patra. I am asking you a straightforward question that aside of being a BJP spokesperson, sir, did you like that question to be the first question to be asked of our Prime Minister? Especially when it's a Prime Minister visiting a country after a decade.
That's what I'm answering. And that's the reason as to why I would say congratulations to the people who successfully tried and did malign the image of this country. Despite the fact that India is the most tolerant country, there has been a section in India as well as abroad which tried to malign the image of the country. Not that we stand with any of the dastardly events that took place in India. And it's not that these events took place for the first, these murders took place for the first time in India. There were umpteen number of such incidences in any country previously, including UK or America for that matter of purpose. We see in America and UK
wait, Sambit. Let me ask Mr. KC Singh. Why is it, Mr. KC Singh, that please address the issue. Why is it that the intolerance to terror is actually overshadowed by the perceived tolerance to intolerance back home? You can try to project yourself as a statesman to the world. But why is it that you have not been able to manage perception?
See, the perception had been managed. PM's 2002 issue had been put away, buried by the world. They had bought Prime Minister's modern image of a modern, progressive India, skilling up, taking India into the 21st century. It's Mr. Sambit Patra and his cohorts in the party who, by whining and self-pity and attacking anybody who tries knocking some sense into them, have convinced the world outside. Why has The Economist written? We have not written that article. Economist magazine finishes its article. I don't know. Let me just finish. Mr. Patra, you are attacking me, so I'm attacking you back. Don't whine. Learn to answer properly. I've been a spokesman of Vajpayee's time here.
Tyagi.
I was the spokesman of the ministry when Vajpayee was PM.
That's Mr. K.C. Singh there, Shambit Patra.
You
It's
don't
Mr. K.C.
whine.
Singh with us who's speaking to you right
Just
now.
listen.
Intolerance back in India.
No.
Yeah. I mean, there's no point whining. The question is, it's the Economist magazine which finishes
We are
its
not whining.
last line
We are
by saying
smiling
there's a
along with the
suspicion.
development of the
But
country.
Mr.
But
Modi
there
is
are a lot of
allow Mr.
people
K.C. to make his
who are
point.
continuously
And allow
whining
Mr.
and they should be
Patra.
shown the mirror.
Sir, please
and
allow
I'm
Mr.
going to
K.C.
mirror
to
showing
make his
business
point.
to you,
Shambit Patra,
sir.
we listen to you. Let me make a point. Mr.
Yes,
Patra, if the spokesman of a party engages in self-pity and doesn't answer questions, that's half the problem. Learn to answer the questions, face reality, because the world is not scared.
Which
they will
question,
ask you
sir?
questions.
If
And
your
don't say
question
because
is India is
anybody who asks a
intolerant,
question in India.
if your question is India is intolerant under Mr. Modi, if you
I
bring
didn't ask
bring
that
back
question.
2002,
I did not ask that
no,
question.
you have been asking that.
The BBC
consistently.
did.
And you are saying that you are whining.
No,
on
that's
that.
not the
at
question,
all.
Mr. Patra.
We are not
I am
whining
asking
on
That's
that.
not the
because
question,
that-
Mr. Patra.
We are not
Patra,
whining
The
on
question
that.
is, why is there this
The question
perception?
here was, yes, the question was one of
Why is there this
has
perception?
sent you a
question was
message.
one of why
That's what
is
I'm
there
saying.
such
The
a
perception
that
is
the
a
first question
manufactured
asked by
one.
the international media there is one of tolerance. That was really the question. It was not something that Mr. K.C. Singh was saying
Everything
as
is
a
manufactured.
personal sort of assessment of the situation.
Yeah.
But if we can just bring the debate back, gentlemen, to the issues
He's
that we are
attacking
talking
anybody
about.
who asks a question.
Yeah, no, if we can just move away from the personal discussions and get back to the debate and talk
May I
about
just
these
come
issues.
in? Let me change
Can I
it.
make a single point?
May I
Okay,
just
Shambit,
change
very
it?
quickly, and then I'd like to go back and focus on the
No,
economic aspect of what has been discussed today. Very quickly, Shambit Patra.
With all due respect
I'd like
to
to come in on the
KCG,
positive
I have
side,
written
yeah.
down the words
Tina,
that KCG
Tina.
asked in the initial question. The initial question was, there is nothing new, it's the old hat, A. Secondly, he said theatrics of the visit. To both, I disagree. It is a different era.
I never
It is
used
a
it.
different
The
era.
theatrics
in
was
foreign
Hartosh Singh
diplomacy,
Bal's
as rightly
statement.
pointed out by Maruk. Just a second, sir. As rightly pointed out by Maruk, it's a
It
different
wasn't
way that
me
the
who
hat
used
has
it.
been worn. So it's not the same torn hat that you're talking of. And secondly, it's not all about theatrics. Definitely optics is important in diplomacy. It all has to be presentable.
Okay,
But it's
now,
not
Shambit, we
theatrics,
get your
sir.
point.
It is
Shambit, I want to go
reality on
straight
the
across to
ground.
Hartosh Singh Bal on that, because you're talking about the fact that it's not old hat. That's in response to Mr. K.C. Singh and Hartosh both. Now, Hartosh, the fact is that if we talk about, the pledges that have been made over the past 14, 15 months from various countries during Modi's visits, has there not been any effect whatsoever on India Inc.? Has there been no effect whatsoever? Let's just talk about the fact that, India's rating, the World Bank ease of doing business rating has gone up. And that has gone up under this Modi regime. That it may be a small move of just 12 spots, but it has happened and it cannot be denied.
Look, the question is that this government rode in on hope. Expectations were there. Obviously, the investment climate was looking up. And I think Maruf made the point that people want to invest in a country that is stable, has an openness, is sure about its values, which is why this question keeps coming back. This is very simple. Shambit Patra wants to make it an issue about national prestige. It is not an issue about national prestige. It is an issue about the silence of a prime minister when something serious is happening in the country, which is why he's chased by that same question abroad. If he had addressed us here, if he had taken it head on, told the people in his party to pipe down, spoken about the need for a climate where investments can come in, none of this would be happening. Instead, as K.C. Singh is saying, we have these bunch of whiners trying to blame their fellow citizens for the kind of problems they've themselves created.
Well, point made, and let Shambit Patra rebut. Shambit Patra, again, coming back, this is what it is. You're doing a lot of good work, but there is a perception which you claim has been manufactured, but you have allowed it to fester. Had it been addressed earlier, had this perception been broken, would this question have been asked on foreign shows? That's the question, sir. That's the question. We are not saying that India is an intolerant country under the current leadership or any time. What we are saying is there is a perception that intolerance is growing. That's where this entire tolerance debate is being fueled from. What has been done to manage or break this perception, sir? Yes, Mr. Shambit Patra.
Anand, that's what I have been saying, if your question is complete, that this perception is a manufactured one. You rightly pointed out, it's not that India is an intolerant country. Yes, India is not an intolerant country.
Again, you're not getting to the crux of it, sir.
I say it is a
Sir, if you believe it's manufactured, sir, if you believe it's manufactured,
can I please be given some time?
Sir, yes, please. My question is, sir, how is this that this perception has been allowed? How is this that this perception has been allowed to grow? What has fueled this perception? Who has encouraged it? Is it tolerance to certain intolerant elements within your own ranks? That's the question.
No, let me tell you. You very well know who are the people who are responsible behind this kind of perception that has been manufactured in India. Now tell me, till about a few days ago, till the Bihar elections, the award wapasi was going on and India was an absolute intolerant country. I being the spokesperson of the party, at least 7 debates a day I used to do on intolerance. Suddenly the very next day, we lost Bihar and thereafter India suddenly became tolerant. No intolerance debates, no more award wapasis. Secondly, there was the same group of people who have been whining. Let me use the word whining. Who have been whining about Mr. Narendra Modi. Who have been whining about Mr. Narendra Modi when he was the chief minister.
You know, for every allegation of a manufactured perception, Shambit Patra, we can also come up with statements made by your leaders.
Those are the same people.
Let's not go down that road, because here we're trying to do something else. What we're asking you here is that despite all the good work that is being done, despite all the push for development, why is it that there's another issue which seems to be taking center stage even internationally? That's the question.
No, Tina, that has not taken the center stage. The center stage lies with other things. The center stage lies with the economic and defense strategic relationship between the two countries. The center stage lies with the Indian students. The center stage lies with the 10 lakh jobs that would be created in the cyber world. The center stage lies with the employment that will come to India thereafter. The center stage lies with the civil nuclear deal. But again, we are seeing that the center stage back home in India, with some manufacturers of intolerance, are trying their best to pull this whole debate to intolerance debate, which I don't want to fall into.
Dr. Patra, sir, Dr. Patra, yes, Hartosh, see, go ahead, Dr. Patra. The point is, the people who make these statements, what happens is there is a perception, or there is a fear, or there is a feeling that this entire development plank is a facade. And perhaps before people are convinced that this is true, this is what this government wants to do, there are people from within your own rank who steer the discourse away and immediately make us think.
No, but
Hartosh Bal, correct me if I'm wrong.
Does not feel
immediately make us think are they showing their true colors here? Is this the reality, sir?
We all may be breaking
and nothing's been done to control those elements. Hartosh Bal, is that the real problem?
Yeah.
That you might be doing good work,
it is, look,
but there are others who do the damage and then walk away.
There is Mahesh Sharma himself, there is Amit Shah during the Bihar elections talking about Pakistan celebrating just because the BJP loses. There is Mahesh Sharma almost endorsing the kind of actions that happened in Dadri. Over and over again, there is no statement from the Prime Minister. Shambit Patra calls it manufactured. If it is manufactured, why rebut it in England? Then don't answer it in England either. If you cannot rebut it here, you cannot address it here, you want to dismiss it and manufactured, then let the Prime Minister stand up in the UK and say, this is the wrong question to ask, this is a manufactured controversy, it is of no relevance at all. Why does he suddenly need the field to assert tolerance there but not in India? Why can't he tell his own party members to pipe down and shut up when they make offensive statements? Why is he himself a participant in a campaign where all sorts of things are said and insinuated about religious minorities?
All right, Shambit, very quickly respond to that, and then we'll come back to the issue of whether or not we're ready to move on from this point and actually get the discourse, the national and international discourse, back onto development. So that question to Maruf in a minute, but first, Shambit, your response to what Hartosh said.
I believe I should not dignify these questions with response, because as you rightly pointed out.
But your finger was up, Shambit. You wanted to respond.
Tina,
you had your hand up,
you gave me 30 seconds. Can I complete my 30 seconds?
Yes.
I have no problem. If you're not tolerant, I can hand you over the 30 seconds.
Shambit, we're waiting for your response. Go ahead.
Yes. Number one, see, I have been participating in this debate since almost 30 minutes now. Not a single good word from the veterans. I consider KCG, I consider Hartosh Bal as positive people, people of eminence, but not a single positive word from them. When their own Prime Minister, leave aside the Bharatiya
You haven't given us a chance, yaar.
He's their own Prime Minister in a foreign land.
Give me a chance,
Should you
I'll
not?
tell you
Well,
the
yes,
positive.
you have every right to come. Sir, let me complete. You have every right to democratically criticize the Prime Minister, which you are doing on a daily basis domestically. But when the Prime Minister in a foreign soil doing a great job, can't you begin by a congratulatory note saying that, well, yes, it's a good day for India that the Indian Prime Minister addressed the UK's Parliament, he received a standing ovation? No. Sadistic pleasure would be derived by a single question that was thrown to the Prime Minister
Dr.
by
Dr. Patra, my objection, is to your using the word or the adjective sadistic, because we are not sadists, we derive no sadistic pleasure, sir. And if you believe, everybody accepted the fact that the joint address, address to the joint session of British Parliament, there was standing ovation, was what I started
with. Well, yes, if you do not derive pleasure, then drop the topic
was
and talk
welcome,
on
is what we started this broadcast with, sir. But Maruf Raza, perhaps you also would agree that this stated position should have come earlier. This stated position should have come closer home. There are people who are asking that he has got hotlines open with global leaders, which is fantastic. But why isn't it that he does not have hotlines and he does not have conversations with his own allies, with his own people, and say, mind it, this is not what we stand for? That's the question everybody is asking, sir. And that is what is fueling the perception, and perhaps undoing all the good work that this government claims they are doing.
Anand, you know, you've asked me this question, and I want to reiterate that not now, not the 10 o'clock part of your debate, but earlier on in this whole program covering Mr. Modi's visit in the UK, I did make this point that Mr. Modi, for a change, has come out and stated very clearly which side of the fence he is on. And I also want to emphasize the one point. I mean, Mr. Patra has got his position, and I respect that. But all I'm saying is that the two pointed questions that came from two British journalists were both in response to a perception that has come to be. And why that perception has come to be, I'm certain they're not hearing the opposition parties only in India, but they follow India in great detail, and therefore there is a perception. Now that perception has to be managed, as Mr. K.C. Singh has lightly brought out. But I think there are a lot of achievements already under Mr. Modi's belt internationally, and even in the UK, there are three things which I feel that we must labour a bit more on this debate.
Yes.
One is this whole arrangement for cyber security.
Right.
You know, we are going to be the largest users of computers in the world. And every individual, every business, every government agency is dependent on the net. And if that is attacked, believe me, we've seen what has happened in countries like Estonia or the Stuxnet virus in Iran. It can cripple very, very highly proficient programs. And all of us will lose our bank accounts. All of us will have aircrafts which will be flying in the air without control. So cybersecurity is a very big area, and I think it's a good step. And I think the other good step that Mr. Modi's visit has taken out of this British arrangement is a desire and a commitment on the part of Britain not to look at India only to export, but put their money where their mouth is and create more manufacturing opportunities in India, particularly in the defense sector, because all these top P5 countries are also the biggest exporters of weapon systems in the world. And if they can get India to move away from being the largest importer of weapons, which is a dubious qualification, and get India to become a net producer of weapon systems with their involvement and assistance, I think it's going to be a big achievement over the next 5-10 years.
Okay.
And finally, the entire set of initiatives, whether it's railways, it's smart cities, it's all kind of electrification of Indian villages, if it can get the Brits involved and get the money invested here, I think Mr. Modi's visit would have been successful, notwithstanding the big ovation he'll get in Wembley tomorrow, which is a given.
Yes, exactly. Shambit, very quickly, just to sum up, what really is the main thrust here? What is the main push here? And if it is trade, then how optimistic are we about what is to follow in the next 4 to 5 years?
So, Tina, most of the people participating in the debate are people who have been doing so, and they would all agree to the fact that this is the first time that Mr. Narendra Modi, the present Prime Minister of India, his every foreign visit, in fact, has given a great deal of thrust, not only in media, but a great deal of discussion takes place around those. Why do we discuss? When previously we were not discussing, why are we discussing it now? Because we have hope, because we see this hope transforming into reality, because we know that the vision of India would be coming true with such kind of visionary politician, such kind of visionary Prime Minister. I'm sure as the day unfolds further in United Kingdom, new things would be added to this dimension of relationship between India and United Kingdom. Well, yes, one very important thing that Maruk has missed, and I would like to add, is the rupee bond trading in London for the Indian Railways, which is a very important thing.
Dr. Patra, will you be considerate enough to allow just 30 seconds to Mr. KC Singh, since you consider him a veteran? He is a foreign, former MEA secretary. Let me ask him, sir, what will convince you in this visit? What will convince you about Prime Minister Narendra Modi? What would you want him to come back?
I am not interested in No, he's already come out with that. The positive side is that don't forget this visit is 21 days after President Xi's visit. Britain is looking at the two rising powers of Asia as potential partners and wants to work with both of them. There's a debate in Britain whether they want to remain in the EU. They're redefining their relationship. They realize there's a shift of economic power. And what Prime Minister Modi, I think, did well was that in the Parliament address, he was able to spell out in very broad terms his vision of where he wants to take India. And these speeches are about that. They are not about specifics. Specifics can follow through later. We are only questioning that there is no need for leaders at that level to say, I got 10 billion, I got 5 billion. That's not important. He is matching visions with the Prime Minister. He did well to do that. He's aligned himself with the leadership on both sides of the bench, and I thought he spoke very well as far as the Parliament was concerned. But as Hartosh said, the distraction wouldn't have been there. Of that question, wouldn't have distracted from his visit if he had taken action before he went.
Yes.
That's the limited point we are making.
Yes, and that point is well taken. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is the ethos of our constitution, says the Prime Minister. Let's hope that line itself, that idiom itself, is tattooed on every person within this government and within the ranks of the current establishment, and they read that when they look in the mirror every day. Perhaps we'll be far more tolerant to each other then. Mr. KC Singh, Hartosh Bal, Maruf Raza and Sambit Patra, thank you very much for joining us on the News Hour this evening.